everyone, and welcome. I'm back with another interview. I've been doing a lot of talking with folks in the last few weeks, and these interviews that you have been seeing on the channel are the product. Today we are talking with Jon Gillham. He came on the channel a few weeks ago. Has it been months? It's been a month or two ago to talk about Motion Invest and some of his other projects. And I reached out to him last week, like I have been reaching out to other folks, just to talk about the state of the industry, where things are at, where he lives, how he's personally and business-wise handling this whole worldwide pandemic. And let's face it, to be honest, mostly it's because I enjoy talking to him, because I love talking to smart people. If you want to know more about Jon or Motion Invest, you can find more about his origin and about the company in the video that I'm going to put up above here somewhere in a card. I'm not going to waste a lot of time in this video sort of going back over that, so we sort of just jump in to the topics that I wanted to talk about. I will definitely link Jon's blog in the description below, and also drop a link to the Motion Invest giveaway that we talk more about in this chat. All right, folks. Here we go. All right, we are on. We are not live. We are recording, and I've got coffee because guess what? It is 5:30 in the morning, and I I will just say briefly before I get started that when I reached out to Jon for this chat, he was like, "Yes, I could do it right away, like within 2 days," which is probably the quickest anybody has ever gotten on the chat with me. But the downside of it for me was that the time you were available was the butt crack of dark 30 where I am. So I have dragged myself out of bed to get here and chugged half a pot of coffee, and it is still dark outside. And the reason I'm lit up like this is because if you could see my face really well, you would see the lines of the bed on my face.
Well, yeah, thanks for making time. I'm excited to talk about this, and I think it's an important topic, and glad to start your day off with this. And thanks for getting up early.
Well, just a little bit of backstory before we get started for the viewers who weren't party to the chat that we had before I started recording. The reason that I asked you to come on, and I've asked anybody else I can think of to come on the channel in the future, is to talk about the impact of coronavirus on our industry and the things that we were doing. And what inspired this was, I've been talking to a lot of people through the channel in the comments of videos and in my content challenge and in Facebook Messenger. People are afraid, right? People have a lot of anxiety because they're unsettled. They don't know what's going to happen. Their lives are changing. And I see a lot of people who I have worked with and I really like, and they are backing off because they're scared. They think this is a bad time to invest in themselves or in their websites or in content. And I feel the opposite. And so, reaching out to people I respect to say, hey, am I getting this wrong? Like, is this a time to charge ahead, or is this really a time when we should be like, backing off and hunkering down? And so, first out the gate, what I want to talk about before we go down that whole road, as I'm doing with everybody I'm talking about, is what is the impact just in where you live in the world, just in general, before we go into websites? Like, what is it like where you live?
Yeah, so school is shut down for 3 weeks. For now, will be longer. So I'm in Ontario, Canada. So state of emergency declared. Non-essential travel not recommended. The U.S.-Canada border being shut to non-work related or non-essential travel.
Is that closed?
Closed. I don't know if it has closed or if it's been declared that it will be closing at a certain date. I don't know the exact details on that, but yeah, and so everyone's staying home for the most part, and store shelves are fairly empty, but society's still functioning.
So how's the toilet paper situation?
I don't get it. Like I try and understand a lot, but I just don't get it. Like, and then the people that are trying to like, there's lots of like problems to solve in the world, but those that sort of see toilet paper as an opportunity, like there's no increased usage. Like if you think of this as a flow, there's no increased usage on the other end.
So many puns that could come from
that. I know.
Oh gosh, I guess it's good if you can make light of the situation in some way, because there are some people who their lives are so turned up, upside down. I live in the Pacific Northwest of the U.S. Okay. Ours is really similar to yours, where there's a lot of talk about shutting everything down. I mean, schools are shut down, restaurants are shut down.
people are basically going about their business, almost business as usual, but there's this underlying like tension all the way around. People are, and it's amazing to me. Everybody's freaking out, but quietly. Like they're freaking out, not rioting in the streets, like freaking
Yeah.
out and like rage scrolling their Facebooks, but they're not going out and doing anything about it. And it just seems like it's just a strange time to be alive right now.
It is. It is certainly the most. Yeah, I think in my life, I can think of one other time where it was like, oh, the world is different.
Yeah, 9/11 is what
Yeah,
I
exactly.
tend to think back to is, there are some parallels to 9/11 and what we're seeing as far as like the run on supplies, and then people are constantly filling up on gas, and then, constantly conspiracy theorying. Like I hate to even like talk about some of the things that I've been reading online about 5G and about, the army and like what is happening. And I just know that I'm never going to know really what's happening.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, it's there's, and it's, I mean, the pain, there's like the loss of life pain and the sickness pain, which is like, don't downplay it, but significant and going to get worse. But then there's the economic impact to small businesses that are just, and workers, but it's that pain is going to be very, very significant.
Well, I mean, it permanent changes. You say, oh, school shutdown is temporary and restaurant shutdown is temporary, but some of these businesses are not going to open back up.
Yep.
Probably a lot of them. All right. Well, let's talk about then, I know it's early on in sort of the whole Corona thing, but I'm asking this to everybody I come across. It says, are you seeing yet any impacts of the coronavirus on Motion Invest or your business in general?
Yeah. So we've been constantly trying to tease it out to understand, because I mean, if we had this conversation a week ago, it would be different. The pace that this has moved at is incredible in terms of the sort of societal lockdown and the economic impacts as a result.
Well, talk to me then. How is last week different from this week?
Is it, what level of restrictions are going to come here? Is right that was sort of an unknown as of like maybe a week and a half ago. But like large gatherings were still a thing a week and a half ago. Businesses were still open and functioning a week and a half ago. Now breaks have been hit. I think that's sort of like state by state, province by province a little bit, but I think most have followed that same path of a week and a half ago to 2 weeks ago, open for business, something's coming, let's be aware, to now totally frozen.
Yeah, absolutely. That was like 3 days ago for us.
Yeah.
That literally just happened. So.
Right. And so the data, like, we only have a few data points in terms of like the pace of orders. We've seen some e-commerce businesses with a little bit of an uptick based on the product to some extent. A lot of sort of like informational sites definitely down. Motion Invest that I know we chatted about. This demand is still there on the buy side. There's been an increase in the number of people looking to sell, but not enough to be able to say like that's as a result of we've been doing other efforts. So still too early to tell. No scenario where this whole asset class is the only asset class that stays divorced of the wider market trends that are happening.
Mm-hmm. What about as far as traffic goes? Are you seeing any changes in traffic either across your websites or to your business in general?
Yeah, down on a bunch, up on a couple, and like sort of like down 20%, up 10%.
Is there any sort of I don't want to ask the websites, obviously, or the URLs, but like the niches, can you say, okay, these ones are doing better or worse or whatever?
The one that's doing definitely the most up, that's sort of in the portfolio, is a home product that's sort of called like crystals, Himalayan salt lamp type product. It's sort of in that sphere. And I think people are just sort of like spending more time at home and doing whatever they can to try and feel better about the space that they're going to be spending more time in. And if this is a product that's along those lines, it's the one that's up most significantly. And then ones that are down are like gadgets. you know, people aren't rushing out to go buy $3,000 gadgets to use outside.
Discretionary spending, clearly. For me, I noticed that basically up until about 6 or 7 days ago, everything was just about stable. And I was like, oh, this is going fine. And then around March 10th or 11th, I started to see a lot of wackiness, a lot of stuff going this way and then this way and some bouncing around. And someone else had mentioned they thought that Google had rolled out some changes without announcing any sort of update specific. And it's hard to say, you know, is it true or not, because Google didn't say anything. To me, it seems, you know, correlation equals causation. Like March 10th was the day where I saw a site that my case study site that I've been working on fell about, not a large amount, maybe 5 to 10%. But then I have a site that's in the tech niche that's about 4 or 5 years old that I've seen a lot of bouncing, just skyrocketed up. Like it's Google recovery. Like it went from seeing about 50 visitors a day to 1,000. Like it went from making $1 a day now to $50 or $60 a day in AdSense. Like what's happening? Really,
that's got to be Google. That's got to be a update there, unless there's a content attached to, like, is it across the site traffic increase, or is it a specific page?
It's specific to one page. It's okay. Like there's one page that somehow like the formula did something, and all of a sudden one page is like, because it's just really hard for me to see how the worldwide interest in that one thing is like really fired up. And it's one of those times when I could wish I could just say what it is, because it would make so much sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what you did, because you are so dang helpful, is John, you actually submitted like a Google slide presentation. I don't think I've ever had anybody come on this thing so prepared, like literally as prepared as you. And because it's 5:30 in the morning, I'm going to look at it.
Sounds good.
So I'm looking at the slide that says traffic impact. And it says peak traffic in impacted regions has increased on average approximately 10%. Oh, and this is the Cloudflare email. And so we're seeing that overall traffic is going up, which is kind of funny because a lot of us are watching our sites where the traffic is going down. But maybe it's because we don't have sites in the areas where you'd see traffic going up. You know, you say, okay, what are people going to be looking at home? And you say, okay, most people aren't going to be probably looking at travel, right? They're not going to be searching for, you know, things to buy. But to me, if people are sitting at home, I mean, eventually those sites that focus on products are going to have traffic again, because people are going to run out of stuff to look at. I mean, what do you think about the trends as far as where we might start to see traffic leveling out or increasing?
Yeah, so I think in terms of timeline, I don't know. I mean, I think right now, you know, it's Corona all the time. You know, one of the data points that we have right now is compared to the most searched term last year, coronavirus is up 5 times over the most searched term. And so it's 5 times more searched than the most searched term last year. And and so what I mean, you know, what that shows is that traffic is up, but it's all Corona all the time in terms of traffic. In terms of when that will stabilize, you know, it's a real human nature question. I don't know. And then, you know, what are going to be the winners? What are going to be the losers? Certainly anything travel, discretionary spending, outside recreational sports, those are all going to struggle. The winners, I think there's going to be a lot of kids at home, a lot of online education, learn from home, arts and crafts, gardening, survival will be big survival guns, big thing right now. How long that'll last, you know, depends on how things play out. Job search sites, cleaning, work from home, at home exercises. Those are kind of the sort of ones that I've sort of pegged as having an eye on.
You know, I was talking to Doug Cunnington yesterday because I interviewed him and asked him some similar questions about, you know, what to do and how to do. And we talked a bit about people who are, and I'm putting on my air quotes because my brain just shut down for a second, about people, you know, jumping out and opportunists. That's the word I was looking for. And you know how we've seen some articles come through, like about that guy who was hoarding hand sanitizer and stuff to sell it on Amazon. And then Amazon went like, and said, you know, took down all his listings and stuff. And Doug's point was, folks who are looking to take this as an opportunity, to make money on their websites right now, it's probably too late, because starting a brand new website, it would be really difficult for it to rank and to do, make ad revenue or to make affiliate sales and something right now, just because of the sandbox and how long it would take to get things going. But I do think that this is a time for opportunity, and this is a time for people to be looking at opportunities move forward. And are you willing to share at all what you're thinking about as far as opportunities and sort of your approach on whether or not now is the time to be conservative versus a time to jump out and actually try out some new things?
Yes, I mean, on the sort of like, is now the right time to be kind of aggressive or conservative? On the personal side, we're definitely on the sort of the defensive side. So we've identified costs to cut on a personal standpoint, and say, hey, we don't know how long this lasts, but let's set ourselves up that this is sort of water off a duck's back, hopefully. On the business side, and I think we were chatting before as well, but back in 2008, there were a few companies that got started that, if you solve the right problems in 2008, 2009, you would be in an incredible situation right now. Bitcoin, Airbnb, Uber, some of the largest companies that we know of, the most valued tech companies, get started in times like this, and that's there will be tons of, like, look around the world right now. There's an incredible number of problems, none of which have been solved. And so, how are we thinking about it? We're pivoting a few different businesses to sort of what we think will be some long-term trends. My blog, Authority Website Income, I think I do have some unique insight. We've spent $1 million on Upwork over the years. We have 70 staff. We have some skill sets around managing remote teams, and sharing. We are basically, both to help people and then also maybe get some traffic. We've open sourced basically all of our procedures around how do we manage remote staff, and shared that because I had real world entrepreneurs coming to me to ask me about, how do you do this thing? I now have staff that are remote. How do you do it? So sharing that. The content marketing business, we had 2 new offerings, one of which was called Content Lever, which is an exceptionally cost efficient way of doing base level digital marketing. So like 4 posts per month plus social media for $299. Mm-hmm. These aren't like ranking Google type of articles, but it's like non-embarrassing, fully covered digital marketing. And we think that's going to be something that people are after. So yeah, we're very much, trying to be value adders and problem solvers, and not, like value extractors, like hand sanitizer boy.
Yeah, well, that comes back to the e-commerce and affiliate, which is the next slide on your thing. And the Amazon itself, you say, okay, we think people say, oh, Amazon is going to be the winner, they're going to make money hand over fist, but Amazon is going to have a hard time being able to uphold their level of service just in general, because of so much that is going on, and the potential availability of the products that they would normally be selling, and being able to have I don't know how they're going to do Prime, right? How they made all these promises with Prime and then suspending essentially what it is they promised, because they can't get things next day or 2 day because they don't have people, or they can't get to where they need to go. What are your thoughts on the viability of getting into Amazon right now? Because a lot of people say, oh, this is an opportunity, I should start, this is the time to start my Amazon FBA business. And to me, it just seems like this is not the time to start an Amazon FBA.
Amazon FBA dips. So I'm a little bit bearish I'm super bullish on it, I would say, on Amazon and e-commerce. Amazon FBA is just always it's always downward pressure, always a struggle, always a lot of things outside of your, you end up with multiple points of failure with an Amazon FBA business. Some people do an incredible, have incredible success with it, and awesome. But yeah, it would be a very, unless you had a unique supply situation. So if you were a Mexico manufacturer.
Somebody closer to your location, like
Yeah.
where you would have more, you'd be more likely to be able to get your supply at this
Yes. If you're relying on travel halfway across the world, across borders that are opening and closing, pretty tricky time. But you're going to have a lot of those people that you would be competing against going out of stock that are just disappearing on you. And so if you can find products that are 99% of the time provided from an area that is locked down, and then you have a unique source of supply, I think that could be a very interesting opportunity right now.
I mean, that, when I started this sentence, my brain is catching up with my mouth. I basically was thinking, okay, FBA is down, don't bother. Drop shipping, no way. Why would you bother? But no, you're right. I mean, there is an absolute opportunity there because the drop shippers who are doing AliExpress, Alibaba, all the rest, they can't get their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The FBA folks who are relying heavily upon Asia to get their stuff, they can't get it. But if you are a drop shipper who's located someplace else where there is supply, you could really, you'd be the only one because most people don't know how or where to get their stuff. That's really interesting. Display advertising.
But yeah, display was showing, interesting world, but the original projection for the year was up 4.3%. And New York Times is reporting a drop currently of 10%. And you would think New York Times would be, similar to other news platforms, all Corona all the time, and doing well with people searching. So I think, it's I don't want to say a canary, but this is sort of like to see New York Times dropping by 10% when they expect it to be up 4%. And they're ones that are probably higher, more, would be in general more up than, our tech gadget affiliate site. That certainly shows something that I think that display budgets will get tightened. And I think especially with the speed that's happening, we haven't seen the real tightening yet because those are all approved budgets for the next quarter. And it's really going to be when people start pulling budgets in Q2 that we'll see the impact. So I think certainly CPMs across the internet will be dropping.
It goes against kind of what you would think from the outside, right? Because talking about how traffic is going to be up because there's going to be more eyeballs in general online. And that's what I guess it makes sense at that level when you think about it practically, but just from the outside, you think, okay, everybody is online. And if there is any money to be made, that there's going to be more competition to try to make it. But to say, overall, the ad revenues just are going to be down because people are going to be spending less. I mean, it makes sense.
So I think for sure CPMs will be down. So like the amount that you will earn per visitor that comes to your site, I think will be, depending on your site, will certainly be dropping. Mm-hmm. If you just take an average site, that's going to go down, but will traffic, because everyone's at home, will traffic go up? We've seen that traffic numbers will likely be going up. And as people get fatigued of Corona all the time, will they start moving into other areas? Possibly. And so I think at that point, will we see an increase in traffic, and will that offset the drop in CPMs from a display standpoint? Too early to tell for sure, but that's what I'm kind of looking for.
So deal volume and website buying and selling. I've heard some people say they think that the deal volume is going to go way up because people are going to panic. They're going to need cash and they're going to be trying to unload their stuff. And then others say, I think people are going to be conservative and they aren't going to want to sell because they're worried about getting a good value for their website property, and people won't be investing. It's like the stock market, right? Everybody's trying to get cash or trying to, settle everything down. And there's no way to know necessarily right now how the multiples are going to change. I personally think that the big deals, I think those are going to slow way down. I think that it's going to be a lot harder for people to want to outlay so much cash if they have cash on hand into some sort of property. I think if people have financing and the access to financing, that they may still want to go forward, but sellers who are looking at big deals like 6-7 figure deals, are going to have a harder time getting people to pay in a lump sum. What are your thoughts about how the website investing sort of space is going to change?
Yes, I mean, I think because Motion Invest does such high deal volume, I think we're unique in terms of being able to see the pace right now, granted on a very small sort of market size of sort of like a specific size of type of site. And so we've seen the demand to both sides equal. We know we have a ton of excess demand right now, and we're trying to feed the supply into that demand. And what we've seen is an increased number of people coming to us with listings. Too early to know for sure, but I mean, we saw that Empire Flippers on Monday put out 19 listings, and that was their record week for number of new listings. So clearly an increased number of buyers coming to them. We know there's a ton of demand that has been sitting on the sidelines at the lower volume. And so will this be a temporary blip that will just sort of equalize that, or will we start seeing multiples decline? I don't know for sure. I can't imagine that online assets are like the one divorced asset class from the rest of the world that sees assets moving up and down. I do think there's gonna be a lot of people that are looking at, how do I take my severance and turn that into a consistent mortgage payment?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's gonna be a lot of people that are looking to move into the online world to generate some take some cash that they've put on the side and generate some income. The deal volume at the larger size, I think you bring up a good question. I don't know. The only sort of like, call it experience that I've had in sort of an economic shock situation is, as I was exiting university, kind of 2008 timing. And so I have a hard time understanding how this will be different from that, but it is very different from that, from a sort of like credit and liquidity standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't like, if SBA loans dry up, then those larger deals will also dry up. Mm-hmm. But with the amount of sort of quantitative easing and the easy access to capital, will that actually accelerate? Will it be even easier to get loans because so much more cash is flooding the market and people want it to get deployed? My couple courses in economics at university are not sufficient to answer that.
Well, I'm not even an economist. I was a lawyer before, and so like when things went sideways, that's when the lawyers make the money.
Yeah.
I thought about the multiples, and I've heard other people say that they think the multiples are going to drop, and I think at the lower end, just because there's so much desire and there's so much demand for the sites at the lower end, I just have to think that the multiples are going to stay competitive for at least a while, because there's so many people who have also been interested and have been waiting and just sort of waiting for that opportunity. And it just seems like people who are looking at this as an opportunity, they happen to have cash and are looking ahead. Unless things really go sideways, like right now, we're not on lockdown. Our kids can't go to school and restaurants are closed. It's not like we can't go to work and the rest, like sort of business as usual otherwise, and people can still earn money. But if, when that changes and when we're really just sitting here eating beans and rice, I mean, that's going to be way different than what we're looking at right now. But I will be curious to see how multiples change. Problems to solve, aka opportunities. That really is the question, right? Like the brainstorming question. There's a lot of other chatter about a lot of folks trying to go online to make money. They want to try to find a way to just close the gap until their real business comes back online. And so I think there's going to be a lot of people going into freelancing for the first time. Really thinking that maybe this make money online stuff is not a scam. Honestly, I think that's what my family thinks I do, is that, that I've been involved in a scam for the last how many years?
Yeah, the family typically plays a game of like, what does John do? No one really knows.
How do we explain that? I think he has a website.
Yes.
So for folks who are thinking, okay, I want to find the opportunity. Like I want to do that. I mean, do you have any advice for folks who are looking for that opportunity and how to get started somewhere?
Yeah, it's, there's all the cliches around, like, like follow the, so like like do something, follow the passion kind of stuff, which I think is in general not great advice. But I think, like I said, there's probably never been a time where this level of number of new problems has started to pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Food delivery, personal shopping for elderly, like not just like online, but just the number of problems in society right now that have been created because of this. Society hums along pretty well most of the time for most people, and now we have this shock to it where all of these systems that have been built up over years are pretty useless. And so is it cleaning service that is approved, like that meets a certain standard, that's a level up from, hard to know for sure. But I think that the key, at least in how I'm trying to look at it, and I have no idea if I'm right or not, but is what are those problems that we have a unique ability to solve? What are the new problems that are not fads, right? Like, don't go make more toilet paper. There is no increase in output on the other end of toilet paper.
That's so funny.
Like, there's people like getting after like bidets is going to be the next trend because there's no toilet paper on shelves. But it's just like, I'm wrong about a lot. I'm not wrong about this. That's not the next trend. That's a fad.
Well,
but yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking about what the trend is a lot of times with online businesses. Like people tend to think in the box, right? They say, just in business in general, you say, I want to start a business kind of like what I see, because it's hard for me to imagine the other problems to solve. And so, people rushing to start mom blogs, right? There's just already so many, but the opportunities, like, okay, if I think outside the box and starting websites, it's not a mom blog, it's starting a niche website about, lawnmowers, because most people aren't going to do that. And the competition is really low. So, being creative about looking at the problem in a different way. And it just seems like there's so much opportunity for people who want to do something other than start a mom blog.
Yeah. And I think even in that, like, even in the mom blog, like a general mom blog, terrible idea. Unless crazy passion can dedicate years to it, but a niche down to the point that is on trend around education. Like, I think a lot of homeschool type sites are going to do quite well. But how do you do like homeschool or kind of anti-curriculum? And so if there's a teacher that's at home starting a mom blog around, here's what I would be teaching, if I was in class in my grade 4 with my grade 4s today.
We're not looking at what people need today, because we probably missed the boat today, but looking ahead, like, to 6 months from now, right? Mm-hmm. So what could I create and have available out there for folks in 6 months? And it strikes me that people who are looking to start like a small preschool or an online preschool, so that's not just teaching, but what could I do to help support those parents? Like an online school, for small folks, like that could be a really great service type business where you have all of the technological capabilities. Like some schools I've noticed are already meeting online and they already have that stuff. My school does not. We've gotten like 4 worksheets and a video, because they're just not prepared for this. And I remember talking to my kid's teacher about how amazing it would be if she were a private teacher in a small class. Like if she had 5 or 6 students that she could basically tutor one-on-one. And I mean, those types, like that is an opportunity right now. Many parents would say, yeah, I pay $500 or $600 a month for my child to go to a school of 5 that complies with all of the Corona type rules and regulations. Like that's, under a gathering of under 10 people, everybody washes. I mean, like that, that maybe I should start a preschool is what I should.
that is a good idea. I hadn't definitely not thought of that, but yeah, I mean, it complies with under 10. You make sort of like, here are my extremely strict rules around parents cannot be in these industries or these traveling, etc.
Yep.
And yeah, and we do temp checks every morning.
That's a service-based business where there is going to be a significant demand. That demand exists now, and in the fall, if school is not closed or not open yet, I mean, people are going to be scrambling to figure out what to do for their kids. What are your thoughts about how long this is going to last? Is this going to be like a 2-month thing, and we're back to business as usual?
So I think we've. I mean, like, I'd be way more nervous if I had been if we'd been China. Right? Like, in terms of like, this is just hitting us and we have no context as to how this ends. We have great examples of how this ends.
Mm-hmm.
China, Wuhan had 1 new case yesterday or something crazy. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely not due to herd immunization, because they're not even close to that point. And so what did they do? I mean, incredible lockdown for a couple months. And then my wife has some former teammates that are in China that are in that area that are sort of like, it's not like you always got to sort of apply the media filter whenever you're getting stuff from media, but these are sort of real people sharing on Instagram out at a park, walking around in Wuhan because they've started to open the city back up. And so, it seems like there's a fairly logical explanation to how this ends, and that is a 2-month lockdown if we stay on the right side of the slippery slope. Mm-hmm. And then a 1 to 2 years until vaccine is available. The herd immunization is not going to happen. I think that's too. And then what's the economic impact of that? I think that's hard to avoid recession, 2 to 3 year recession. I mean, I know I'm wrong, but I don't know how wrong.
I mean, do you think that people are going to change as a result of this, as far as their consumption and spending? I mean, Americans are the worst, right, at just spending every dollar they have and more, so carrying tons of debt. Do you think this could be a wake-up call to folks who have saved nothing and spend everything?
I mean, there's some scary, we haven't seen that shake out. So yes, I think there will be some real impact from that. I forget what some of the stats. So 40% of, and Canada, US, for a similar boat, 40% couldn't, maybe it was 28%. I don't know the exact number, but couldn't come up with a $400 emergency payment. It's sort of like a $400 thing would sink them. 75% of vehicles on the road are financed. The room for error a month ago wasn't very significant. So, as slack, like we're only a week or 2 weeks into this, so we had a little bit of slack in the system, but once that slack is out, I don't know.
And the thing is that people, I want to say people are taking care of themselves and making good choices now, in the face of stress. But what I've heard personally from people is that they, like, secondhand stories of people going and just blowing their entire savings on food, right? Just to hoard supplies. And so having zero cash on hand, going and spending their entire paychecks and then realizing that they don't have any money to pay bills. Like, just really being extraordinarily panicky about what it is that they even have. And it's frightening.
Yep. Yeah. I think, sometimes always concerned about being in a bubble, but yeah, there's in terms of like the exposure to everything. But yes, so far what I've seen, at least sort of in Canada, I think we sometimes pride ourselves on being kind of the boring North Americans. And so I think so far I think society, I've seen more examples of good in society right now than I've seen, like Mr. Hand sanitizer. So I think there's been a lot more cases I've seen people stepping up to help society out through this period of time. than foolish decisions, but that'll change.
Mhm. Well, I'm going to shift gears a little bit, but before I do that, because I do want to talk about the giveaway, just because I think that it's not just to publicize it, but I think doing the giveaway is really interesting. And then also I wanted to talk about the blockchain thing, just because I have you. Do you have any more thoughts that you want to chat about as far as coronavirus and the impact on our business and our industry?
I think people that have the mindset during this time of sort of aggressive on business, take care of life decisions, and opportunity spotters from a not extra value extractors, but sort of problem solvers standpoint, are going to come out of this. There are $1 billion ideas out there right now to be executed on, and all smaller than that. So I think it's unfortunate when it comes with so much pain, but we've never seen this level of change. I've never experienced this level of change in the world that we live in, and that creates an incredible number of problems that can be solved and profitably solved over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I'm hearing you say that, and I'm like going like, yes, I'm like gonna get off of this call here in a little bit, and then just immediately go and like get to work on something.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this giveaway. And by the way, I'm totally gonna win it. I have 51 entries so far.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel really good, and
Awesome.
So for folks who are watching this who don't know, and timeline is important, because if you're watching this in 2021, the giveaway is over. We're talking about March and April of 2020, and you guys are giving away a website that is earning money through an affiliate income, and it's a smaller site, probably a couple $100 a month, maybe.
Yep.
And why? I mean, why? Right? Like, you guys say that you're selling everything, as fast as it comes in the door. And I mean, most of these giveaways are to generate buzz and to bring in business. Like, why right now? Like, why do this?
Yeah, so it was pre-corona, the sort of decision to make this giveaway, but I mean, it still makes sense to do now. The answer is mind share, market share. We definitely found a hole in the market that people need solved, and that is the smaller content sites that are vetted, that are incredibly efficient to buy and sell.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't exist, and so we want, we have our sort of like little audiences to communicate that with, my little audience, Spencer's larger audience. And we've kind of gotten that word out, but then how do we go and sort of amplify that and make people aware that Motion Invest is here, and this is what we do. We're not Flippa, we're not a broker, we're in between those two. If you need a content site that's making, $50 to a couple $1,000s a month, and you want to buy one efficiently or sell one efficiently, that we're the home for that, and make that happen all the time. And so much so that we're happy to give a site away and then add in other sort of additional giveaways to go with it. So yeah, it's really about just a marketing strategy to get leads, and super congruent with the type of business and sites that we're selling.
I think it's genius, honestly. You're like, yes, I know, of course, it's genius. But what you've done, though, to add value and create value as far as a giveaway, to get people to come in and give you their email address and to participate in it. I like that you partnered with other folks that have audiences. I mean, it's a good reason for them to share it with their audiences, but it's also so much value. I mean, Doug's course, Jared's content, Link Whisper. How could you not want to go in and say, okay, yeah, I would really love to give you my email address. And it's just such a good example of a creative way to give value to people in exchange for their email list, versus like this crappy PDF, that's 3 pages long.
Right.
It's an ebook,
right,
that I could have created, with a pencil.
Yeah, no, it's been great. And those other people that are sort of that are including those giveaways, especially when they're like zero replication cost courses or software, they're getting exposure to a significant size list now. And yeah, no, it's been extremely well received by the winners so far. And entries went really crazy right off the start, and still going. So it's been fun.
So what's my competition?
There's somebody with 250 entries, so you got a little bit of work to do. That was a week ago too, so he might be up more.
Okay, well, go right now if you're watching this. There's a link in the description. If it's before April 6th, right? April 6th is when this ends. Go down and use my link. Don't use anybody else's, and go and enter for a chance to win an actual website, plus a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, sounds
All right.
good.
And we're going to close here, and I know you have to get going here shortly, but I wanted to touch on AdBank, because I have literally never heard of AdBank aside from doing research on, just to get ready for talking to you. And I am super curious about it. And I wondered if you could just tell the people who are watching this a little bit about the project and how and why it is that you're working on it and how you expect to make money from it. I mean, I'm just so curious. Like, tell me about it.
Yeah, so AdBank is a blockchain project launched in the sort of the heyday of blockchain projects and ICOs. ICO's initial coin offering, and so what it is now is it has sort of gone through some evolution. What it is now is an ad block extension that blocks ads and replaces ads with ads served by the AdBank platform that rewards the end user for seeing ads. And so if the digital advertising ecosystem is, if that transaction is valuable and us as viewers of those ads are a significant part of that value equation, why don't we get rewarded? And so
you're saying that I, as the viewer on my Chrome, while using this thing, I get paid?
Yeah.
How? Like, I don't even know how could that technology possibly work? Like, please tell me,
Yes.
tell me more about it.
So when in any transaction of digital advertising transaction, there's a viewer that provides their attention. There is an advertiser that wants something shown, and there is a publisher that has created valuable content in order to get that person there to facilitate this transaction. AdBank will block an ad, replace that ad, reward the publisher and the end user equally for viewing that ad.
Oh,
and
wow.
The way that happens is you have a Chrome extension. So it's called Blade is the extension. So you have Blade installed on your Chrome browser, and it records all of the impressions as they occur. And then as campaigns end and you build up enough tokens, you get rewarded but with AdBank tokens for viewing those ads.
And then what do I do with an AdBank token?
So it's a cryptocurrency that is exchangeable, similar to the same way that sort of a Bitcoin or Ethereum would be. We need, it's a tricky world from the standpoint of like the SEC and in terms of what can and can't be communicated. But that's it. You receive the cryptocurrency. Advertiser comes in with money. Publisher receives, advertiser gets a discount, and the viewer receives a credit for seeing ads.
So does it cost anything for the end user, the viewer like me, to use the extension?
No, it's free. If you're in the US, then it's not available to residents in the US right now, which is a downside. And everyone needs to go through a know your customer verification process. We've seen some significant uptick. We're growing, so we're at like 30,000 end users. Certainly decent traction, and people are certainly enjoying it, and we're kind of continuing to pivot and evolve. But it's clear that in the next 10 years, there's no scenario where the viewer for viewing an ad isn't part of the value equation for seeing that ad.
So it's not available in the US, but it's available in Canada and the rest of the world?
Not Canada. Most of the rest of the world. There's a handful of other countries that either have come out with laws around making cryptocurrency questionable. China, and then there's the the usual suspects that we don't make it available to, like North Korea and stuff.
So what's the hurdle then for the US and Canada?
The SEC. So are we, I don't think we are, but are we giving away a security? Like is the token, although it's utility, like as clear utility as it could be, is it a security? If it is a security, then we need to be compliant with all the securities laws. And so that's the hurdle that you probably know is better than most.
Oh, so they make this like an investment sort of transaction. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's how. So a lot of like during the time of like ICO days, the initial coin offerings, a lot of projects we never sold publicly in Canada or the US. A lot of projects that did have gotten into a lot of trouble with the SEC, saying that you sold unregistered securities to qualified investors.
Yeah, the accredited investor rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's so interesting. Even though these people aren't, I guess they're exchanging something of value, which is their time, right? And so that's the interesting thing people don't realize about securities laws, that it's so broad. Like it's not just money that you invest. You can invest time or loan money. I mean, it's so broad.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been if everyone that was playing in this world of cryptocurrency was doing what we were doing, this wouldn't have even been a blip on the radar. But because there were, significant legitimate scams that involve this cryptocurrency that hurt different cryptocurrencies that hurt investors, the SEC has taken a very aggressive approach, which will be a good thing long run. But it has just resulted in a sort of a risk profile for us that isn't what we want to be playing with until we get a little bit more clear direction from them on what they deem security versus not security.
You don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but I was just curious. It sounds like a project that probably got launched with the thought that you would be able to use it and deploy it in Canada and the US, and it was something that you found out later that wasn't an option. I mean, are you willing to speak to that?
Yeah, for sure. We knew we wouldn't be able to do, we thought we would be there by now. We thought we'd be able to by now. When we launched, we knew that so we didn't do a public sale in Canada or the US. We knew those areas were off limits. We thought it was a 1 to 2 year timeline for clarity. And we're not there. So we knew it when we launched, but thought we'd be closer to sort of some clarity from regulators sort of around, okay, yep, they've said this is good. We're very similar. Let's go get our rubber stamp and open up.
So can you say yet at this point whether this was a good idea, or have you had that moment like, oh, with this, I'm glad we did this?
So I'm definitely glad I did it, and still doing it. Like we're still grinding away on it very hard. But it's, all cryptocurrency has followed a similar path. We're not immune to that. And so there's people have gotten a lot of value from the product. Others have lost on sort of the call it like the value side of the token, similar to everything else in that world. But I think the time if we can't generate enough value, then it will have been a bad decision. But we're still in the phase of lots of swings left to determine that we're not where we want to be yet. But I think 30,000 users and a very interesting solution to something that's sort of certainly going to be a trend over the next 10 years. It'll be happy to be where we are right now.
Well, I just have to say that I think it's a really great example of finding a problem and then a creative solution to it. Like it's like the sort of prime example of what someone could do if they just tried, right? Awesome.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. And yeah, it's been it's definitely an interesting world. And I think I think similar. There's a quote from Darwin that I think kind of ties into both, but around it's not necessarily the strong or the fastest that survives, but it's the one that adapts the quickest that survives and thrives. And I think that's as relevant today, as it was in kind of crypto days, peak crypto days. But there will be opportunities out of Corona that whoever can adapt the fastest will be able to solve the most problems and add value.
Awesome. Well, I know that you have to get to a meeting here shortly. Before we wrap up, for folks who don't know who you are, if they want to follow more about you or get more information about any of the stuff that we have talked about Blade or about the giveaway, I mean, where should they go?
Yeah, so best place is my blog. Not on social media at all, unfortunately. I know I should be, but yeah. Websiteincome.com is the place where I share kind of what I have happening and what my thoughts are on different things that are happening in sort of the online entrepreneurship world.
Mm-hmm. I think your blog, by the way, for anybody who's watching this, is great because you don't just put blog about your personal life. Like you tend to do, you just talk it more in depth and actually take data and crunch it and come up with some conclusions about it. So I think your blog is super valuable for folks. Motioninvest.com is where people can go if they want to jump in the giveaway, and the link is in the description. Please use my link. And then if they want to find more out about Blade, where should they go?
AdBank.network is the place to go. That's the home for that project. And and then Blade.software is where you can download the extension. But AdBank.network is the starting point for that project.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to log us out. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope that you will agree eventually to come back.
Absolutely. Thank you. Happy to chat.